Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrest of her command chair as the alert klaxons blared through the bridge of the UNS Vanguard. Red lights pulsed across the consoles, casting sharp shadows on the faces of her crew. "Status!" she barked, her voice cutting through the chaos like a laser. Lieutenant Marcus Hale, her tactical officer, spun from his station, sweat beading on his forehead. "Multiple contacts inbound, Captain. Zorathian cruisers, 3 of them, closing fast. They're arming weapons. Treaty violation confirmed. Section 4. No-fly zone over Epsilon Eridani." Elena leaned forward, eyes narrowing at the holographic display flickering to life. The Zorathians, those tentacled bureaucrats who'd signed the peace accords with such fanfare, were now painting her ship with targeting locks. Her fingers danced over the controls, pulling up the directive protocols. Annihilation Directive 9 stared back at her. Unilateral response authorized for gross breaches. No negotiations, no warnings, just enforcement. "They're hailing us," Ensign Kira Novak said from comms, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. The young officer patched it through, and a gurgling voice filled the bridge, translated by the AI into clipped English. "Human vessels, stand down. This is a reclamation operation. Your colony on Eridani Prime infringes on our historical claims." Elena's jaw tightened. Historical claims? The Zorathians had waited until Earth's first settlement took root, then decided to rewrite the maps. She glanced at Marcus, who was already plotting firing solutions, his fingers flying. "Reclamation my ass," she muttered. "Arm all batteries. Prepare for evasive maneuvers." The ship shuddered as the first plasma bolt grazed their shields, a near miss that sent sparks dancing from a bulkhead. Kira yelped, ducking instinctively while Marcus cursed under his breath. "Shields at 80%. They're not playing, Cap." Elena stood, her boots magnetized to the deck. The bridge smelled of ozone and fear, but she forced her voice calm. "Hale, target their lead ship's engines." Novak broadcast the directive. "Zorathian forces, you have violated Treaty Section 4. Earth invokes Annihilation Directive 9. Cease and desist, or be destroyed." The response came as another volley, this one slamming into the Vanguard's flank. Alarms wailed anew. Hull breach in engineering. Elena's mind raced. They were outnumbered, outgunned, but humans didn't fold. Not after the wars that carved those treaties in blood. "Evasive pattern Delta 7. Fire on my mark." As the ship twisted through the void, stars streaking past the viewports, Elena felt the weight of it all. One wrong move, and Eridani Prime's fragile dome habitats would shatter under orbital fire. Her crew, Marcus with his unyielding grit, Kira's quick wits, looked to her now. The railgun's thunder echoed through the Vanguard's decks, a satisfying bark that sent tracer fire lancing toward the lead Zorathian cruiser. Elena gripped the command rail, her knuckles white against the worn metal as the enemy ship's shields flared under the barrage. One hit connected, sparks of plasma blooming like dying stars, but it wasn't enough. The Zorathians swarmed closer, their wedge formation tightening like a noose. "Shields at 60%, Kira reported from her station, her fingers flying across the holographic console. Sweat beaded on her forehead, but her voice stayed level, edged with that sharp intellect that had gotten them out of tighter spots before. "They're modulating frequencies. Our point defenses are lagging." Marcus grunted from engineering's feed on the main screen, his face smeared with grease and resolve. "Hull breach sealed, Cap. But we're venting Atmo in the lower bays. Give me 2 minutes to reroute power or the next hit takes us apart." Elena nodded, her mind slicing through options like a vibro knife. The treaty violation burned in her gut. Zorathians probing Eridani Prime's outer markers, ignoring the no-fly zones etched after the last war. Directive 9 wasn't bluster. It was Earth's line in the sand, backed by every railgun and missile silo they'd clawed from the stars. But out here, with 3 enemy vessels closing and their own engines straining, it felt like staring down a storm. "Helm, push us toward the debris field," she ordered, pointing at the sensor overlay where asteroid remnants from an old mining op cluttered the void. "Use it for cover." Kira jammed their targeting arrays, hit him with the Ghost protocol. "Aye, Cap." Kira's eyes lit up, already tweaking the emitters. The Ghost protocol was her baby, a human hack that mimicked sensor ghosts to confuse alien tech. No elegant quantum folds like the Zorathians boasted, just raw jury-rigged code born from late nights in Sims. The Vanguard shuddered as she banked hard, thrusters firing in staccato bursts. Rocks tumbled past the viewports, jagged shadows against the black. Elena felt the G-forces press her into the deck. A reminder of flesh and blood limits no alloy could match. One pilot's error and they'd smear across a boulder. Incoming missiles, 4 locked. Kira's warning cut sharp. Deploy countermeasures, Elena snapped. Marcus, status? Power reroute in 30, he barked back, his channel alive with the whine of tools. Keep 'em off us or we're dead in the water. The countermeasures bloomed, chaff and decoys scattering like fireflies. 2 missiles veered, detonating harmlessly in the debris. The other 2 streaked true, slamming into the forward shields with a jolt that rattled Elena's teeth. Alarms blared again, shields dropping fast. They're adapting, Kira said, frustration creeping in. Ghost protocol's only buying seconds. Elena scanned the TAC display. The Zorathian's lead ship was powering weapons, a fat cruiser bristling with plasma lances. Behind it, the escorts flanked, cutting off retreat. Eridani Prime hung in the distance, a blue marble under siege. Its dome city's oblivious for now. 1 orbital strike and millions gone. No, they wouldn't let that happen. New plan, she said, voice steady. Marcus, vent plasma from the engineering ducts, make it look like we're crippled. Kira, sync it with the ghosts, draw them in close. Marcus paused on the feed, then grinned through the grime. Risky, but hell yeah. On your mark. Kira's hands blurred. Syncing now. They'll think we're easy pickings. Elena watched the enemy close the gap, their engines glowing like predator eyes. Her heart pounded, but doubt had no place here. Humans built empires on worse odds. Mark. Plasma vented in a brilliant plume, the vanguard listing artificially. The Zorathians pounced, formation breaking as the lead cruiser surged forward, weapons hot. They're biting, Kira whispered. Elena allowed a tight smile. Reel 'em in. But as the distance shrank to knife fight range, a new alert flashed. The escorts were firing blind, probes slicing through the debris. One grazed the hull, shearing a sensor array. Sparks flew in the bridge and Elena's console flickered. Lost forward scans, Kira cursed. We're flying half blind. The stakes twisted tighter. One feint too far and the trap would snap on them instead. Elena gripped the armrests, her knuckles whitening as the bridge lights dimmed under emergency protocols. The Zorathian lead cruiser loomed on the secondary screens, its jagged hull cutting through the plasma haze like a serrated blade. Divert power to evasive thrusters, she ordered, voice steady despite the flicker in her console. Kira, get me eyes on those escorts, whatever it takes. Kira's fingers danced across her panel, rerouting auxiliary feeds from the damaged array. Sweat beaded on her forehead, but her jaw set in that familiar line of determination, patching through the dorsal cams now. Got partials. 3 escorts flanking the big one, closing at flank speed. They're weaving, trying to flush us out. The vanguard shuddered as another probe streaked past, its wake rattling the bulkheads. Elena felt the deck tilt, the ship's inertial dampeners straining. Marcus at tactical slammed his fist on the console. Captain, if we don't break this feint, they'll box us. Recommend hard burn to port. Draw them into the debris field. She nodded, calculating the angles in her head. The debris from their earlier vent was a calculated gamble, a cloud of twisted metal and ionized gas meant to mask their minds. But blind, it was a minefield for them too. Do it. Helm, port burn, full impulse. And spool up the railguns, silent running until my mark. The engines roared to life, a guttural thrum vibrating through the floor. The view screen blurred as they veered, chunks of wreckage whipping by in eerie silence. Elena's pulse synced with the rhythm, each beat a reminder. Humans didn't win by outgunning. They won by outthinking. The Zorathians, for all their predatory grace, fought like apex hunters, direct, unforgiving. But they hadn't counted on a crew that turned desperation into doctrine. Escorts inbound, Kira reported, her voice tight. 15 seconds to firing range. One's locking on, missile salvo prepped. Countermeasures now. Elena snapped. Flares erupted from the vanguard's flanks, blooming like false stars against the void. The missiles veered, detonating in harmless fireballs that lit the bridge in staccato flashes. But the lead cruiser didn't flinch. It accelerated, weapons bays irising open with a predatory gleam. Marcus leaned forward, eyes narrowing. They're committing. If we can lure them another kilometer. A sharp klaxon cut him off. The ship lurched violently, gravity plates whining in protest. Hull breach, deck 7, Kira yelled, pulling up schematics. That probe clipped us deeper than we thought. Venting atmosphere. Elena's mind raced. Deck 7 housed the auxiliary power relays, critical for the trap. If they lost that, the mine stayed dormant and the feint became suicide. Seal it off. Marcus, reroute power from life support if you have to. Keep those relays hot. He hesitated just a fraction. Captain, that'll drop O2 levels ship-wide. Crew starts feeling it in minutes. Do it. Her tone brooked no argument, but inside the weight settled like lead. Sacrifices weren't abstract. They were the faces in the corridors. The voices on comms going quiet. We lose the ship, everyone suffocates anyway. The air grew thicker, a faint metallic tang creeping in as recyclers strained. Elena forced a breath, focusing on the tactical overlay. The Zarathians were closing the noose, their formation tightening around the debris. One escort fired wildly, a beam grazing the Vanguard shields and sending cascades of sparks across the ceiling. Shields at 60%, Marcus grunted. They're adapting, jamming our probes. Kira cursed under her breath, slamming a diagnostic. Not if I can help it. Uploading a go signature. Make it look like we're splitting course. Elena watched the overlay shift, a phantom blip peeling off from their vector. The Zarathians bit, 2 escorts breaking to pursue the illusion. Clever girl, she thought, a spark of pride cutting through the haze. But the lead cruiser held true, its mass a relentless shadow. Almost in position, Elena murmured, timing the burn. The debris field thickened ahead, a graveyard of their own making, salvaged hulks laced with proximity mines. One wrong twitch and it'd be over. Then the cruiser fired. A lance of energy sliced through the void, slamming into the Vanguard's bow. Alarms wailed. The ship bucked like a wounded beast. Forward shields down, Marcus shouted. Direct hit, hull integrity dropping fast. Elena braced as the deck heaved, her console erupting in error codes. The air tasted sharper now, lungs burning with the first hints of strain. They were exposed, the trap half-sprung, and the enemy was upon them. But in that chaos, an idea flickered. Human grit, forged in corners of the universe where treaties meant nothing and survival demanded the impossible. Helm, reverse thrust, full stop, she commanded, the words slicing through the din. Kira, prime the mines manually. We're not reeling them in anymore. We're dragging them under. Kira's fingers flew across the auxiliary panel, overriding safeties with a series of frantic taps. Sweat beaded on her forehead. The bridge lights flickering as secondary power surged to the mine deployment array. Mine's hot in 10 seconds, she grunted, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. The enemy cruiser loomed larger on the view screen, its hull a jagged silhouette against the starfield, closing the gap with predatory grace. Elena gripped the armrests, eyes locked on the tactical overlay. The reversal had bought them seconds, maybe a minute. But the alien ship's energy lance was recharging, a telltale glow building along its forward emitters. Marcus, reroute auxiliary power to the ventral thrusters. We need to pitch down hard. Kira, deploy on my mark. Aye, Captain. Marcus's response came clipped, his console a blur of red alerts. The deck groaned as the Vanguard responded, inertial dampeners straining against the sudden vector shift. Elena felt the pull in her gut, a reminder that space didn't forgive hesitation. The first mine ejected with a muffled thud, tumbling free into the void like a seed from a pod. Kira watched it drift, her breath held as the cruiser's sensors swept past. They're not locking on yet, must be focused on us. Good. Deploy the rest in a cone pattern. Make it look like debris from our damage. Elena's mind raced, piecing together the gamble. Treaties be damned. The Zarathians had shattered Section 4 with their unprovoked strike on the outpost. Annihilation Directive 9 wasn't vengeance, it was necessity, a human doctrine born from too many broken pacts. But right now it was about survival. Alarms blared anew as the cruiser's lance fired again, the beam grazing their starboard flank. Sparks erupted from a bulkhead. Elena smelled ozone, sharp and acrid. Shields at 20%. Marcus yelled. We're venting atmosphere from Deck 7. Hold it together. Elena snapped, more to herself than the crew. The mine spread out, invisible against the cosmic backdrop, their proximity fuses armed. The cruiser barreled through the debris field, or what it perceived as one, its engines flaring blue. Kira punched the final release. All deployed, if they don't detect the signatures. A shudder rippled through the Vanguard as the first mine detonated, a silent bloom of plasma far off their bow. The chain reaction followed, mines igniting in sequence, shredding the cruiser's underbelly. Debris spun wildly, the alien vessel listing, its weapons array sparking and dying. Direct hits, Marcus whooped, his caution forgotten in the rush. They're crippled, drifting. Elena allowed herself a tight smile, but the view screen showed the cost. Their own hull breaches glowing like wounds, escape pods launching from the enemy wreck. Not all threats ended cleanly. Secure the breaches. Kira, scan for survivors. Directive 9 says annihilation, but we confirm kills first. The bridge fell quiet, save for the hum of repair drones activating. Outside, the void claimed its toll. Stars indifferent witnesses to the fray. Kira's fingers danced across the console, her eyes narrowing at the flickering readouts. Survivors confirmed, Captain. Life signs in 3 escape pods, weak but stable. They're hailing us on emergency frequencies. Elena leaned forward, the weight of the directive pressing like an unseen gravity. Annihilation meant no loose ends. No tails carried back to whatever hive the aliens called home, but pods unarmed drifting. She glanced at Marcus, who was already patching the nearest breach with a jury-rigged sealant gun, his face smeared with sweat and circuit residue. Audio only, Elena ordered, her voice steady despite the knot in her gut. The hail crackled through the speakers. A guttural alien tongue laced with static, please maybe or curses. Kira translated on the fly. They surrender. Request asylum under Treaty Section 7. Marcus snorted from his station, slamming a panel shut. Asylum? After breaching our perimeter and igniting half the sector? Directive 9 doesn't negotiate. The ship groaned as another repair drone whirred to life, sealing a gash in the bulkhead. Elena watched the view screen. The enemy cruiser was a mangled husk now, venting atmosphere in lazy spirals, while their own vessel limped on auxiliary power. One wrong call and they'd join the debris field. Options, she asked, keeping it terse. No time for debate. The next patrol window closed in hours. Kira hesitated, her cautious nature showing in the slight tilt of her head. We could tractor them in, interrogate for intel on their fleet movements, or directive protocol, plasma torpedoes. Clean slate. Marcus wiped his hands on his jumpsuit, eyes hard. Torpedoes. They've violated enough treaties for 10 wars. Letting them live invites retaliation. Elena drummed her fingers on the armrest, the hum of the engines a low thrum in her ears. Intel could turn the tide. Maps of alien strongholds, codes to their shields. But Directive 9 was etched in every officer's mind. Total enforcement, no mercy for aggressors. The aliens had glassed a colony outpost last cycle. Hesitation then had cost thousands. Arm the tubes, she said finally, the words tasting like ash. But spool the tractor first. If they transmit anything outbound, we vaporize mid-haul. Kira nodded, initiating the sequence. The bridge lights dimmed briefly as power diverted to weapons. Marcus moved to assist, his earlier whoop replaced by grim focus, human grit, turning survival into retribution. As the tractor beam lanced out, snaring the lead pod, a proximity alert blared. Elena's heart skipped. What now? Pod's powering up, Kira reported, voice tight. Not escape thrusters, something else. Energy spike. The view screen zoomed. The pod's hull split, revealing not desperation but a concealed warhead, its casing etched with alien script. A final spite wired to detonate on capture. Cut the beam, Elena barked. Marcus lunged for the overrides, fingers flying. The tractor released with a shudder, the pod tumbling free but too late. The warhead ignited, a brilliant flash blooming against the void. Shrapnel pinging off their shields like vengeful hail. Alarms wailed. Shields at 60%, Kira said, breathless. Secondary pods following suit, arming now. Elena gripped the console, stars streaking past as she punched evasive maneuvers. 2 more flashes lit the darkness, closer this time, rocking the ship. A panel sparked overhead, raining embers. Damage report, she demanded. Hull integrity holding, Marcus grunted, rerouting power. But we're blind on starboard sensors. They planned this. Suicide stings. The last pod detonated harmlessly at a distance, its glow fading like a dying ember. Silence settled, broken only by the ship's labored breaths, creaks and hisses echoing through the corridors. Elena exhaled, scanning the empty view screen. No survivors, no intel, just echoes of defiance. Directive 9 enforced, but at what price? Their own scars ran deeper now. A reminder that victory in the black left no winners unscathed. Stand down, weapons, she said quietly. Plot course for rendezvous. We've got repairs to make. Elena gripped the armrests of her command chair, the leather creaking under her fingers as the ship shuddered into the rendezvous sector. Alarms blipped faintly from the console, a nagging reminder of the starboard blind spot. Status on the docking sequence? she asked, her voice cutting through the hum of straining engines. Marcus wiped sweat from his brow with the back of his hand, his jumpsuit smeared with grease. Aligning now, Captain. But that power reroute I did earlier, it's holding barely. One wrong jolt and we kiss goodbye to auxiliary thrusters. He punched a sequence into the panel, his movements precise despite the fatigue etching lines around his eyes. The view screen flickered to life, revealing the skeletal frame of the orbital station drifting against the starfield like a forgotten bone in the void. Docking clamps extended with a metallic groan, latching onto the hull. A jolt rippled through the deck, and Elena braced herself, tasting the metallic tang of recycled air. No explosions this time, just the quiet victory of arrival. "Secure the bay," she ordered, unstrapping and rising. Her boots echoed on the grated floor as she headed aft, Marcus trailing behind. The corridors felt narrower now, lit by emergency strips that cast long shadows. Scorch marks from the pod detonations marred the bulkheads, a patchwork of black against gray steel. In the engineering bay, the repair crew from the station was already swarming aboard. Hardened faces under helmets, tools clanging. Lieutenant Reyes, the station's chief mechanic, met them at the hatch. She was a stocky woman with a scar bisecting her cheek, her eyes sharp as she scanned the damage logs on her datapad. "Captain Vasquez," Reyes said, nodding curtly. "Heard you enforced Directive 9. Clean work, but your girl's hurting. Starboard arrays are fried, looks like EMP residue from those alien stings." Elena crossed her arms, studying the sparks flying from an open panel. "How long to patch her up?" "We've got incoming chatter from command. Possible follow-up on the treaty breach." Reyes snorted, handing the datapad to a tech who dove into the wiring. 48 hours if we're lucky. But that blind spot? It's not just sensors. The whole nacelle's compromised. One more hit like that and you're drifting scrap. She paused, her gaze flicking to Marcus. "Your engineer's tricks bought you time, but we're talking full overhaul." Marcus leaned against a conduit, arms folded. "Overhaul? We don't have the luxury. Patch it tactical. Prioritize sensors and weapons grid. I can jury-rig the rest en route if we push." The debate hung in the air, tension coiling like a spring. Elena weighed it, the weight of the crew's lives pressing on her. Outside, the station's lights pulsed, a beacon in the endless black. But reports from the fleet whispered of alien scouts probing the outer rims, treaty violators testing Earth's resolve. "Make it 24, Elena decided, her tone brooking no argument. "Reyes, your best people on it. Marcus, coordinate with them. We're not sitting ducks." As the teams dispersed, clangs and shouts filling the bay, Elena slipped into the adjoining observation deck. Through the viewport, the wreckage of the last pod orbited lazily, a twisted relic. Her reflection stared back, tired eyes, jaw set. The directive had been clear: annihilate to enforce. But the cost gnawed at her. The empty seats in the mess hall a silent accusation. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. "Incoming transmission from Earth Command, encrypted tight." She activated the console, the screen blooming with the stern face of Admiral Harlan. "Vasquez," he said without preamble, "your actions confirmed, but intel shows the Zorathians aren't done. They're massing at the neutral zone. Violations just the opener. Rendezvous confirmed, but expect orders to lead the counterstrike. Repairs or not." Elena's pulse quickened. "Understood, Admiral. Ship's status? Compromised but viable. Grit it out. Humanity's counting on that ingenuity of yours." The line cut, leaving static. She turned back to the bay where Marcus was already elbow-deep in a console, barking adjustments to the techs. Reyes shot her a thumbs up amid the chaos. No time for doubt. The black waited, hungry for the next move. By the time the first weld sealed, night cycle had fallen over the station, artificial stars twinkling in the dome. Elena joined Marcus in the galley for a hurried meal, reconstituted protein and synth coffee that burned going down. "Think we can shave it closer?" she asked, stirring her mug. He nodded, chewing thoughtfully. "If I bypass the secondary relays, yeah. Risky, but it'll give us partial sensor sweep. Better than flying blind into a hornet's nest." Their eyes met, a shared understanding passing. No speeches, just the quiet resolve of survivors. Outside, the station hummed with purpose, a fragile hive against the void. Dawn cycle broke with a shudder as the final clamps released. Elena took the bridge, the view screen alive now with tentative feeds. The starboard array flickered but held. "All stations report," she called. "Engines green," Marcus replied from below. "Weapons hot," came the gunner's confirmation. Reyes's voice patched in from the station. "You're patched, Captain. Don't bring her back in pieces." Elena allowed a thin smile. "No promises." Thrusters fired, pulling them free. The course plotted. Straight into the neutral zone where the Zorathians waited. The ship accelerated, scars and all a defiant arrow in the dark. Elena gripped the armrests as the viewscreen bloomed with the neutral zone's hazy nebula, tendrils of gas swirling like forgotten ghosts. The Vanguard cut through it, engines thrumming a steady pulse that masked the growing unease in her gut. Sensors pinged erratically. Zorathian patrols, no doubt, testing the borders they'd sworn to respect under Treaty Section 4. But respect was a human luxury. The aliens had shattered it weeks ago, raiding colony outposts and leaving nothing but slag and silence. Earth's response? Annihilation Directive 9. No mercy, no negotiations, just calculated payback. "Captain, incoming signature." Marcus's voice crackled from engineering. Frigate-class Zorathian markings. "They're hailing us, audio only." Elena's jaw tightened. "Let them talk." She nodded to the comms officer. "Patch it through." A guttural rasp filled the bridge, translated on the fly into halting English. "Human vessel, you trespass. Turn back or be culled like vermin." Witty Reyes would have fired back something sharp, but she was back on the station, coordinating resupply. Elena leaned forward, her voice steel. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the UNS Vanguard. Your kind violated Section 4 when you glassed New Horizon. We're here to enforce Directive 9. Surrender your fleet or join the debris." Static hissed, then laughter. Deep, rumbling like grinding stones. Bold words for a scrap heap ship. "We come," the hail cut. Alarms blared as the frigate materialized from the nebula. Its hull a jagged mosaic of armor plates, weapons ports glowing crimson. It was bigger than intel suggested, a predator built for ambushes. "Battle stations," Elena ordered, her pulse syncing with the ship's rising hum. "Marcus, divert power to forward shields. Guns, target their engines. Disable, don't destroy yet." The Vanguard shuddered as the Zorathian vessel unleashed a barrage. Plasma bolts streaking like vengeful comets. Shields flared, absorbing the hits, but Elena felt the strain through the deck plates. They were outgunned in raw firepower, but humans didn't win with brute force. They adapted. "They're flanking," the tactical officer reported, fingers flying over consoles. "Evasive pattern Delta?" Elena shook her head. "No, hold course." "Engineering, what's our window on that jury-rigged booster?" Marcus's reply came breathless. 2 minutes, Cap, it's holding barely. But if we push it, we might warp jump right through their formation. Risky. The booster was a human hack, pieced from salvaged parts after the station skirmish. Zorathian tech was elegant, crystalline. Theirs was grit-wrapped ingenuity. But one overload and they'd be adrift in the nebula's heart. The frigate closed, its secondary weapons locking on. A torpedo lanced out, proximity fused to detonate in a web of shrapnel. The Vanguard rolled hard, the blast glancing off the port side, tearing a gash in the outer hull. Sparks erupted on the bridge. A console smoked, its operator cursing as she slapped it down. "Damage minimal," Elena said, more to steady herself than the crew. "Keep firing." "Hit their sensor array! Blind them!" Guns barked in response, railguns spitting kinetic fury. One round connected, shattering the frigate's dorsal nodes in a bloom of fire. The alien ship veered, confused, its return fire scattering wide. "Now, Marcus, booster!" Deep in the bowels, the engines roared to life with a whine that rattled teeth. The Vanguard surged, acceleration pinning Elena back as they barreled straight at the frigate. Collision course. The aliens panicked, thrusters firing to evade, but too late. Elena watched the view screen, the enemy's hull filling it like a closing jaw. "Jump in 3, 2, space folded." The warp bubble snapped into existence. A human shortcut through the math the Zorathians deemed impossible. They emerged on the frigate's far side intact, while the alien vessel overshot into empty void. "Flank them," Elena commanded. "All batteries, full spread." Torpedoes launched, guided by the brief sensor blackout. Explosions rippled across the frigate's rear, engines blooming into white-hot ruin. It listed, calm silent, drifting like a gutted fish. But victory tasted like ash. Scans showed the nebula crawling with more signatures. Reinforcements closing fast. The Vanguard shields were down to 30%. The booster smoking on auxiliary lines. "Cap," Marcus patched in, voice edged with fatigue. "That stunt fried half our coils. We can't jump again without a full refit." Elena exhaled, staring at the widening net of blips. They'd bought time, enforced a sliver of the directive, but the real fight was just igniting. "Then we fight smart. Plot intercept on the lead group. Let's show them what humans do when cornered. Elena gripped the armrests of her command chair, the hum of the Vanguard's straining reactors vibrating through the deck. The nebula's tendrils swirled outside the viewport, a deceptive calm masking the swarm of enemy signatures tightening their noose. Marcus's warning echoed in her mind. Coils fried, jump drive offline. But hesitation wasn't an option. Not with the treaty violation fresh and Earth's directive burning in every crew member's gut. Evasive pattern Delta 7, she ordered, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. Keep us in the dense gas pockets. Weapons target the lead interceptor's ventral array. Hit him where it hurts. Lieutenant Reyes nodded from tactics, fingers dancing over his console. Firing plasma lances. Brace for return fire. The ship lurched as azure bolts streaked from their forward batteries, slicing through the murk. The lead alien craft, a sleek dagger-shaped vessel from the Zorathian fleet, shuddered under the impacts, its shields flaring like struck matches. But the Zorathians didn't falter. Countermeasures deployed in a haze of chaff and missiles arced back, hungry for the Vanguard's weakened hull. Alarms wailed. Incoming! Marcus shouted from engineering, patching through the internal comm. Shields at 28%. Diverting power from life support to hold the line, temps rising in the forward bays. Elena felt the chill seep in already, the air recyclers throttling back. Her crew, 20 souls handpicked for grit, exchanged glances across the bridge. No panic, just that quiet resolve humans carried into the void. She'd seen it on a dozen frontiers. When the odds stacked high, they improvised. Status on the frigate we downed? She asked, eyes locked on the tactical holo display. The gutted enemy ship tumbled lazily, a momentary obstacle in the nebula's flow. Still venting plasma, Reyes reported. But their reinforcements are syncing up. 3 more frigates linking fire control. They're coordinating a pincer. Damn. The Zorathians had violated Section 4 clean. Unprovoked incursion into neutral space, treaty be damned. And Directive 9 demanded total enforcement. No mercy for aggressors who thought human worlds were soft targets. But out here, outnumbered, it was survival math. Marcus, can we rig the auxiliary thrusters for a slingshot off that wreck? Use their momentum against the pack? A pause, then his voice crackled back, laced with that engineer's optimism. Risky, Cap, but yeah. Reroute the booster relays through the salvage grapples. It'll tear hell on the frame, but we could whip around and flank 'em. Do it. Elena turned to her XO, Chen, who manned the nav station. Plot the vector. Make it count. The Vanguard shuddered as engineering teams scrambled below decks, sparks flying in the dim-lit corridors. Elena imagined Marcus elbow-deep in conduits, sweat beading under his vac suit, barking orders to his techs. He'd lost a brother to Zorathian raiders last cycle. This wasn't abstract for him. For any of them. Missiles closed in, proximity klaxons blaring. Evasive! Elena snapped. The ship rolled hard, inertial dampers whining. 1 warhead grazed their aft quarter, shields buckling in a shower of virtual sparks on the display. The bridge lights flickered, emergency reds bathing faces in stark relief. Shields critical, 18%. Reyes yelled. Almost there, Marcus grunted over comms. Grapples extended, locking on. The Vanguard surged forward, magnetic claws snagging the drifting frigate's husk. For a heartbeat they were tethered, the larger mass dragging them into a wild spin. Elena's stomach flipped as the viewport spun, nebula gas streaking like comet tails. Cut loose on my mark, Chen called, his calm a anchor in the chaos. 3, 2. The grapples released with a metallic screech, hurling the Vanguard into a hairpin turn. Momentum carried them behind the wrecked frigate, using its bulk as unwitting cover. Enemy fire peppered the debris, shredding what was left of the Zorathian hulk, but missing their prize. Now, Elena commanded. All batteries broadside on the flankers. Torpedoes erupted from the Vanguard's ports, weaving through the gas clouds on improvised guidance from Marcus's jury-rigged boosters. The lead interceptor took the brunt, its side crumpling under the barrage, secondary explosions lighting the nebula like fireworks. Cheers erupted on the bridge, short and fierce, but Elena's gaze stayed on the holo display. 2 frigates down, but the others adapted fast, fanning out, probe drones launching to pierce the haze. They're learning, she muttered. Marcus, damage report? Frames holding, but we've got microfractures in the hull plating. And the coils. They're toast for good. No more tricks like that, the cost sank in. They'd enforced a piece of the directive, bloodied the invaders, but the net was closing tighter. Earth's reinforcements were light years out and the Vanguard was running on fumes. Steady? Elena said, more to herself than the crew. We adapt or we die. Plot us a burrow into the core nebula. Let's make them chase ghosts. The ship dove deeper into the swirling void, engines protesting but unbroken. Elena gripped the armrests as the Vanguard shuddered through the nebula's thickening tendrils. Purple gases coiled like living smoke around the hull, distorting sensor readings into a chaotic blur. She could feel the deck plates humming under her boots, a vibration that spoke of strain more than speed. Status on those probes? She asked, eyes flicking to the tactical overlay. Marcus leaned over his console, fingers dancing across the flickering panels. They're adaptive bastards, rerouting around our ECM bursts. 3 have locked our signature, closing at flank speed. The frigates are holding pattern, waiting for the kills. A bead of sweat traced down his temple, but his voice stayed level, the cautious edge sharpening into focus. Beside him, Jax, the wiry comms officer with his perpetual half-smirk, punched in evasion algorithms. I've got a ghost trail looping back through the core. Might buy us a minute if we pulse the auxiliary thrusters. Do it, Elena ordered. And reroute power from life support if you have to. We breathe later. The ship lurched as Jax executed the maneuver, engines flaring in a deceptive arc. Alarms blared softly in the background, a persistent whine that clawed at her concentration. She remembered the treaty's cold legalese, Section 4, no incursions into neutral zones, and how the aliens had shredded it with their expansionist hunger. Directive 9 was Earth's blunt response. Total enforcement, no quarter. But out here it felt less like policy and more like survival etched in steel. The first probe materialized on the display, a sleek dart cutting through the haze like a predator scenting blood. Incoming! Marcus shouted, his brave facade cracking just enough to reveal the fear beneath. Elena slammed the alert klaxon. Evasive pattern delta, hardport. The Vanguard twisted, inertial dampeners whining in protest. The probe streaked past, its energy lance grazing the shields in a shower of sparks visible even through the viewport. The impact rattled loose a panel overhead, raining debris onto the bridge. Jax cursed under his breath, wiping dust from his eyes. Shields at 60%. That was too close. They're sinking their fire now. Elena's mind raced, piecing together fragments of the nebula's layout from fragmented scans. The core was a volatile heart of plasma storms and gravitic eddies, a place no sane pilot ventured. But sanity had burned out cycles ago. Marcus, can we vent plasma from the forward bays? Make it look like a reactor breach? He paused, calculating. Risky. Could overload the injectors, but yeah, it'll mimic a dying ship. Draw them in. Make it convincing, she said, her voice steady despite the knot in her gut. This was ingenuity born of desperation, humans turning weakness into a lure. Marcus nodded, his hands blurring over controls. A low groan echoed through the ship as valves hissed open, spewing ionized gas in a brilliant plume. The probes veered sharply, signatures converging on the false signature like moths to flame. For a heartbeat, silence gripped the bridge, broken only by the hum of straining systems. Then the sensors lit up, the lead probe diving straight into the trap, its lance charging for the kill. Now! Elena barked. Jax fired the improvised countermeasure, a burst from the auxiliary coil repurposed to generate a localized EMP pulse. The probe spasmed, systems frying in mid-strafing run, tumbling harmlessly into the nebula's depths. The second followed suit, caught in the backlash. But the third was smarter, peeling off at the last second. It unleashed a barrage, torpedoes blooming like deadly flowers against the Vanguard's flanks. The ship bucked violently, red lights flashing across the consoles. Hull breach in engineering, Marcus yelled, scrambling to his feet. Smoke curled from a nearby vent, acrid and choking. Elena pushed up, ignoring the sting in her eyes. Jax, seal it off. Marcus, with me, we patch this manually. They bolted down the corridor, boots pounding against the tilting deck. Sparks showered from exposed wiring, and the air grew thick with the tang of ozone. Behind them, the remaining frigates closed in, their shadows looming larger on the long-range feed relayed to her wrist display. In the engineering bay, chaos reigned, conduits ruptured, coolant hissing like steam from a punctured line. Marcus dove under a console, wrench in hand, while Elena wrestled a sealant patch over the breach. Her arms burned with the effort, but she held it firm as the adhesive set. Got the relays stabilizing, Marcus grunted, sweat soaking his uniform. But we're blind on aft sensors now. They could be right on us. The ship trembled again, a deeper shudder that vibrated through her bones. Through the comms, Jax's voice cut in, terse and urgent. "Captain, the frigates are launching boarders. Drones with cutting beams. We hold the line or they carve us open." Elena's jaw set. They'd bought time, bloodied the enemy, but the cost mounted. Fractured hull, failing systems, a crew pushed to breaking. Yet in that grit, she saw the spark of what made humans endure. Not flawless plans, but the will to improvise when the void stared back. "Arm the breach defenses," she replied, sealing the patch with a final twist. "We fight from inside if we have to." As they raced back to the bridge, the nebula's glow painted the walls in eerie hues, a reminder that the chase was far from over. The aliens had violated the treaty. Now Earth would etch the consequences into the stars. Elena burst onto the bridge, the acrid tang of scorched circuits hitting her like a wave. Alarms blared, red lights pulsing across consoles as the crew snapped to attention. Jax pivoted from his station, face slick with sweat under the flickering overheads. "Boarders breached the mid-deck, Captain. Drones are slicing through the bulkheads. 3 compartments venting already." She dropped into the command chair, fingers flying over the tactical display. The alien frigates loomed on the main screen, their sleek hulls disgorging swarms of insectoid machines that darted toward the vanguard like predatory wasps. The nebula's swirling gases distorted their outlines, but the threat was clear. If those cutters reached the core, the ship would tear itself apart. "Evans, reroute power to the inner shields," Elena ordered, her voice steady amid the chaos. "Jax, get me a firing solution on the lead frigate. Target their launch bays. Don't let more of those things out." Evans, the wiry engineer with a perpetual squint, hesitated for a split second, his hands blurring over the panel. "Power's at 42%, ma'am. Rerouting now, but it'll black out the forward guns." "Do it." Elena's gaze locked on the viewport, where the first drone slammed against the hull with a distant thud that vibrated through the deck. The ship groaned, a low metallic wail echoing from the corridors below. Jax leaned in, his breath ragged. "Solution locked. Firing torpedoes. Wait, they're jamming the guidance. Those bastards adapted already." The torpedoes streaked out only to veer wildly into the nebula's haze, detonating harmlessly in bursts of plasma that lit the void like fleeting fireworks. Elena cursed under her breath, slamming a fist on the armrest. The alien's tech was evolving mid-battle, learning from every hit. Earth's directive demanded total enforcement, no mercy for treaty breakers, but right now, survival came first. "Manual override," she snapped. "Jax, take the sticks yourself. Aim for the bays even if it's point blank." He nodded, sliding into the co-pilot seat, his usual wit silenced by focus. The bridge crew worked in terse bursts. "Hull integrity at 67%, one called. "Boarders and engineering access," another warned. Elena felt the weight of it all, the crew's eyes flicking to her for the next call. They'd lost too many already. Good people reduced to flickering names on the casualty list. A sharp jolt rocked the ship, sparks erupting from a nearby console. Evans yelped, batting at his sleeve where a panel had shorted. "Lost auxiliary power. Drones are through, they're cutting toward the reactor." Tension coiled in Elena's gut like a spring. If the core went, the Vanguard would become a drifting tomb, their mission to enforce Directive 9 nothing but stellar dust. She scanned the readouts, mind racing. The aliens relied on precision, their drones like extensions of a hive mind, efficient but brittle if you hit the right nerve. "Listen up," she said, rising to her feet. The crew turned, faces etched with fatigue. "Those drones need a control signal from the frigates. Jax, plot a microjump. Get us inside their formation, close enough to flood their comms with our ECM burst." Jax's eyes widened. "That's suicide, Captain. The nebula's interference will blind ourselves too. Better blind than carved open." She met his stare, unyielding. "Evans, prep the burst array. Make it a shotgun blast, everything we've got." The engineer scrambled, jury-rigging cables with hands that trembled but never faltered. Elena watched the drone's progress on the internal schematics, red icons creeping closer to the engineering heart. A young ensign at comms wiped blood from a cut on his forehead, whispering prayers under his breath. This was the grit of it, the human edge. Not superior tech, but the refusal to yield when the math said fold. "Initiating jump in 10, Jax announced, his voice tight. The ship hummed, engines straining against the nebula's pull. Alarms screamed as the boarders punched through another bulkhead. The distant clash of automated defenses firing in response. Elena gripped the chair as the stars warped. They emerged in a heartbeat, wedged between two frigates. The alien vessel's underbellies filling the viewport like colossal shadows. Now Evans hit them. The ECM burst erupted, an invisible wave scrambling every frequency. Drones faltered mid-crawl, their beams flickering out as control links severed. On the screen, the frigate's swarms convulsed, machines turning on each other in confused frenzy. But the cost hit fast. The nebula's radiation spiked, frying secondary systems. Lights dimmed, gravity wavered, and a frigate's point defense laser grazed their flank, shearing off a sensor array and a spray of debris. Elena tasted blood from a bitten lip, the bridge tilting as emergency protocols kicked in. "They're pulling back," Jax reported, a grin cracking his grim expression. "Drones are scrap. Our boarders are holding the line inside." Elena exhaled, scanning the damage. Hull breaches sealed, but the reactor was overheating, and half the crew was nursing wounds. The alien's lead frigate limped away, trailing plasma, yet reinforcements flickered on long-range sensors. Victory but Pyrrhic. The chase would burn them out before annihilation. She straightened, voice cutting through the settling hum. "Patch what you can. We enforce the directive. Treaty or no, they don't walk away." The nebula swirled on, indifferent witness to their defiance. Elena gripped the armrest as the Vanguard's engines thrummed back to life, the nebula's tendrils coiling like smoke around the viewport. Jax's fingers flew across his console, rerouting power from non-essentials. Lights dimmed, auxiliary systems whined in protest. "Reactors stable at 60%, he said, his voice steady despite the sweat beading on his forehead. "But if we push for pursuit, we'll be running on fumes in an hour." She nodded, eyes locked on the tactical display where the alien frigate's signature blinked erratically, its reinforcements now a tightening noose on the edge of sensor range. The treaty violation burned in her mind, Section 4 clear as stellar law. No incursions into neutral space. They'd crossed that line with weapons hot, and Directive 9 left no room for mercy. Annihilation, or Earth's frontier, would bleed for it. Helm matched their vector. "Keep us in the nebula's shadow. We hit them before the fleet arrives." Lieutenant Rao at the navigation station twisted in her seat, her cautious nature surfacing in the furrow of her brow. "Captain, the debris field from their drones is thickening. One wrong maneuver and we're venting atmo." Her hands hovered over the controls, precise and unyielding, the woman who'd once plotted a blind escape through an asteroid swarm without a single scratch. Elena met her gaze, the weight of command settling like hull plating. "We adapt or we die, Rao. They've got the numbers. We have the grit. Plot the intercept." Rao exhaled sharply and complied, the ship shuddering as thrusters fired in short, calculated bursts. The bridge crew moved like a well-oiled mechanism, Jax barking overrides to engineering, his witty edge dulled by focus, no quips to lighten the strain. Sparks popped from a nearby panel, and Medic Torres patched a coolant line with makeshift seals, his brave hands steady even as he winced from an earlier shrapnel graze. "Holding," he muttered, tying off the hose with a grunt. 4 of them bound by this chase, the cost already etched in the empty stations where crewmates had fallen. Alarms blared as the alien ship veered, its plasma wake scorching the nebula's gases into a brief fiery bloom. Long-range sensors painted the reinforcements. 3 cruisers closing fast, their treaty-breaking hulls bristling with illegal armaments. Elena's plan had been simple: board and disable the lead frigate, force a signal of compliance. But the backfire hit like a torpedo. Their boarding party was pinned inside, comms garbled by interference. "Boarders reporting heavy resistance," Jax relayed, his grin long gone. "They're down 2, Sanchez and Lee. The aliens are rigging explosives on the core." Elena's jaw tightened, tasting that metallic tang of blood again. Real cost faces she knew. Sanchez's easy laugh in mess hall. Lee's quiet resolve during drills. No speeches, just the raw push forward. "Evac them if you can. We can't lose the directive's edge." Rao's voice cut in, terse. "Incoming fire. Evasive pattern delta." The Vanguard bucked, inertial dampeners straining as lasers sliced through the void, one grazing the shields in a shower of azure flares. Elena braced, the ship groaning like a wounded beast. In the lull, Jack slammed a fist on his console. "We improvise. Divert auxiliary power to the grapples. Pull their frigate into the debris field. Let the rocks do the work." His eyes lit with that human spark, the kind that turned desperate odds into legend. Elena considered it. The risk a knife's edge. Drag them in, and the Vanguard might shred itself too. But caution had its limits. Do it, Rao, align us. Torres, brace for breaches. The team snapped to. Camaraderie and the clipped affirmations, no heroes, just survivors forging ahead. The grapples launched with a thunderous release, magnetic tethers snaking through the nebula's haze. They latched onto the frigate's hull, yanking it off course. Alarms wailed as debris battered both ships, the alien vessel crumpling first, its structure buckling under the improvised assault. But the pull tore a gash in the Vanguard side, air hissing out in a fleeting vortex. Boarders extracted, Jax announced, relief cracking his tone. But the reinforcements are locking weapons. Elena stood, the bridge lights flickering. The chase wasn't over. The fleet loomed, a shadow against the stars. Elena gripped the console edge, her knuckles white against the vibrating deck. The alien fleet's icons swarmed the tactical display like predatory insects, closing the gap with relentless precision. Jax, status on the boarders? She barked, eyes flicking to the flickering readouts. Secure, Captain. But they're prepping a boarding tube of their own. Looks like a ram spear variant. Impact in 90 seconds. His voice cut through the hum of straining engines, steady despite the sweat beading on his brow. Rao's hands danced over the navigation panel, rerouting power from non-essentials to the grapples still embedded in the drifting frigate wreck. I've got auxiliary thrusters online. We can slingshot off the debris field, but it'll shred our port side. He glanced back, his cautious nature etched in the furrow of his brow, waiting for the order. Torres snorted from engineering's feed, her image grainy but fierce. To it, I've sealed the breaches, mostly. We'll vent atmosphere, but better than turning into scrap. No hesitation, just the grit of someone who'd patched hulls under fire before. Elena nodded sharply. Execute. Jax, arm the emergency purge on that spear if they get too close. The bridge thrummed as Rao fired the thrusters, the Vanguard lurching forward in a desperate arc. Debris pinged off the shields like hail, each impact a jolt that rattled teeth. The alien ram spear loomed larger, a barbed shadow slicing through the nebula's glow. Alarm screamed proximity, red lights bathing the crew in bloody hues. Purge away, Jax yelled, slamming the command. A burst of plasma erupted from the Vanguard's underbelly, the improvised weapon, cobbled from mining charges and coolant vents, blooming into a searing cloud. It engulfed the spear's tip, melting sensors and warping the alloy in a cascade of molten sparks. The alien craft veered wildly, its trajectory shattered, but not before a glancing blow tore across the Vanguard's flank. Klaxons wailed as secondary systems failed, lights dimming to emergency reds. Elena felt the ship shudder, a deep groan echoing through the bulkheads. Damage report. Core integrity holding, Torres replied, her voice tight. But we've lost the grapples and half our maneuverability. Fleet's regrouping, 2 cruisers inbound. Rao plotted evasive vectors, his fingers blurring. The nebula's dense clouds offered scant cover, but he spotted a weakness. A gravitational eddy from a nearby pulsar, unstable but exploitable. Captain, if we dive into that pull, we can fake an overload signature. Draw them in, then micro-jump clear. Elena's mind raced, weighing the risks. The eddy could crush them as easily as the aliens, but surrender wasn't an option. Not after the treaty breach. Not with the border's intel confirming the fleet's full invasion vector. Risk it. Torres, give us everything on the jump drive. Aye. Overloading coils. 30 seconds to criticality. The engineer's feed showed sparks flying in her compartment, her team welding reinforcements on the fly. The Vanguard plunged toward the eddy, engines screaming in protest. The alien cruisers pursued, weapons hot, their beams lancing through the haze like accusatory fingers. Elena watched the distance close, heart pounding in sync with the ship's faltering pulse. Jump primed, Rao announced. The deck bucked as the first cruiser fired, a grazing shot that vaporized a sensor array in a flash of white. Now, Elena commanded. Reality warped. The Vanguard's drive ignited in a defiant roar, slingshotting them through the eddy's maw. Space folded around them, the pulsar's gravity whipping them into a micro-jump that bypassed the fleet's blockade. Alarms peaked, then silenced as they emerged on the nebula's far edge, battered but free. Behind, the cruisers barreled into the trap, Rao's faint overload signature luring them straight into the eddy's crush. Sensors caught the distant crumple of hulls, a chain reaction of explosions lighting the void like false stars. Elena slumped into her chair, The bridge quiet save for the hiss of venting air. Jax patched through from medbay. Borders stable. We've got their data, enough to rally the defense fleet. But Torres's voice followed, edged with cost. Jump fried the drive core. She's limping home, Captain. Weeks in dry dock minimum. Elena stared at the stars, the weight of survival settling like nebula dust. The treaty's violation demanded more than one ship's stand. But they'd bought time, human time, earned in fire. Earth would enforce Directive 9. They always did.